Today's Inside Line is all about the Nitto Trail Grappler. I'm going to give you my 8th month review about what I like about these tires, where I think they could improve, and just why I picked them for my 2018 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon project. So let's get into some quick basics. Now this is a 37 by 1250 R17. Now I have paired this tire with a 17 by 8.5 KMC beadlock. This is a true beadlock wheel. It's got about 4 3/4 inches of back spacing. Works very well to keep it tucked underneath. Now I paired this tire with a beadlock for a specific reason. Nitto is known for a very thick and heavy duty sidewall, and I needed something that I could drop this tire into single digit PSI without having to worry about the tire coming off of the wheel and debeading. So that's why I invested in a beadlock wheel. For this package, I actually think it's very well worth it. If you're going to be doing a lot of off-roading, you know, I could still drop this thing down to 10, 12 PSI and it would be very effective, but I like to be between 4 and 7 PSI on the trail, so the beadlock was a very good investment for that. Now maybe my favorite feature about the Trail Grappler, and one of the reasons that I tend to go back to it, is the fact that it doesn't make a ton of noise on the highway. Now from day one, it was a very quiet tire. I had these mounted and balanced at a low range 4x4 that's local to me here in Wilmington, North Carolina. They did a great job, didn't take a lot of ounces, didn't have any wobbles or shake or anything to worry about. So I was very excited about that. Now, I've had these tires on other vehicles in the past, JKs, I had them on a Ram truck, so I already had a good idea about what kind of noise they made, and it was one of the reasons that I wanted to go back to the tire for this, particular build. And I'll say, after 8 months, they got a little bit louder, but not a lot. It's just not a loud, obnoxious tire. Nitto's done a really good job of sort of engineering a tread pattern that, even though it works awesome on the trail and cleans out and all that good jazz, it doesn't give you that crazy highway roar that you would get with a more aggressive tire. Now, I'll say, my JL isn't super quiet in general. The hardtop doesn't have the headliner and all that good stuff, and it's got a little bit of wind noise, but I've done plenty of highway trips with this vehicle, and I've not had an issue with like tire noise being obnoxious. Now I run 30 PSI in the front and around 28 PSI in the back for my street pressure. That gives me a nice flat footprint for the highway, so that's worked out very well for me. Moving from a 35 to this tire, my fuel economy went from about 16 to 18 to I'm around 14 and a half to about 17 and a half, and I'm still running the stock 410 gears. Overall off-road, the 410 gears and 37s is fine, but really I wish I had 488s, just for the fact on the highway with 37s, this particular one, I'm not able to keep 8th gear as well over 70 miles per hour. It does it fine below 70, but above it just doesn't keep it as well. So I don't know, I think re-gearing wouldn't be a bad thing, but I guess it depends on where you live. Overall, in terms of how I like how the tire rides, I think it rides really nice. It does have a very heavy duty sidewall. It's a low range D. It's one of the reasons that I did upgrade to a beadlock when I changed out tires and wheels. I knew in order to get the most sidewall bulge and ride quality and traction off-road, I needed a beadlock. And so, having that beadlock allows me to go between 4 and 7 PSI on the trail, which is ideal for this Jeep. And I would probably recommend, if you're going to be doing a lot of trail riding, I think a beadlock is a really good investment for that. It's a good pair with this tire. This tire can hold, I think its max PSI is somewhere around 50 PSI, and that it'll support, I think, 3,500 pounds. So load rating is not an issue for this Wrangler. Maybe the only kind of on-road thing that I don't love about it is it doesn't have a lot of sipes. So in wet weather, it you know, doesn't have maybe as much grip, especially when you get that first initial like coating or rain. It doesn't work as well as like my Ridge Grappler, but it's not really not that bad. You kind of get used to it. It's one of those trade-offs when you get to a aggressive mud terrain radial, but that's really the only negative. Even though the tire is a little heavy, it's worth it to me to have the heavy-duty sidewall. You know, I don't have to worry about ripping or messing it up, especially at a low PSI. You know, I wheel this thing a lot in a variety of terrains, but a lot of the rocks here, especially if I'm just running up to Uwharrie National Forest, man, those rock trails are up there they're not super extreme, but the rocks are like razor blades, and they will just slice the mess out of the tire. And you can see the lines and the cuts in these tires, but I'm not at all worried about it. Hasn't made it through. It's just, you know, it's all basically like superficial wounds. It hasn't been an issue. So it's one of the reasons I went to this tire, but it is something, you know, worth noting. Now, off-road, you know, obviously we'd all love to live in a world where we get to just go off-road all the time. You know, I've had this Jeep in sand, mud, rock crawling, slick trails, dry trails, you name it. The only thing I haven't put this Jeep in is snow, because we don't really get a lot of it. And I'll say the tire just works really well, especially when we get this wet, when our clay here in North Carolina gets really wet. We have a lot of blue clay here in the southeastern coastal district, and then when you move into the mountains, you get this more like orange-red clay, and that will pack in a tire and really just leave you spinning in your tracks. But these tires do a really good job of spinning out. You know, with the 4-to-1 in the T-case and a really low first gear, you don't always get a lot of wheel speed in low, and so you really need a tire, I did, that would clean out fairly quickly, so I didn't have to just kind of nail it everywhere I was going. And the Trail Grappler has been really good for that. I'm very happy with how it performs in wet, which is kind of really the true test of how these tires are going to work, especially for a mud terrain, is how well they're going to handle a wet and muddy trail. And you know, I've got no complaints about how these do. They haven't, you know, failed me or let me down by any means. Dry wheeling works awesome. I get lots of grip. Like I say, airing down to low PSI really makes all that a lot easier. It makes a big difference for having, you know, just 7 PSI and allowing the tire to grip. In the sand, I live where you can drive on the beach a lot. It moves along just fine. Would I put it on a 3/4 ton truck if I was going out to the sand a lot? Maybe not the best tire for that. I'd probably maybe do like a Ridge Grappler, but for this, it works just fine. It's super competent. You know, it cleans out. I don't have a lot of desert style trail wheeling here. We do have some really long like game lands and stuff that we can go and explore, more like overland wheeling. It does well for that. It doesn't pack up with gravel, so it kind of keeps that stuff cleaned out fairly easily. When I used to live in Southern California for quite a few years, I actually had these Trail Grapplers in a 35 on a JK, and I got the opportunity to take that JK on the first ever JK experience. I think that was around 2011. And man, it was my first time dealing with the Trail Grappler. Just kind of came out. Wasn't sure how it was going to work. I didn't have bead locks or anything like that. We did a lot of desert 2-track. We went to Glamis. We went all over. We ended up actually wheeling in Johnson Valley. That was sort of the last day. And I was definitely the undergun Jeep on that trip, but it did great. The tires it stayed very stable at high speeds in the desert. I was super excited that it never felt overly squirrely. You know, we put a ton of miles on those things when we do those highway trips. So overall, I've been able to experience this tire in a lot of different terrain. It's not a super expensive tire. You know, my local shop had them in stock, got them in a couple days. Again, no shakes, no shimmies, haven't had a balance issue with them. I've been stoked on how they work off-road. I haven't necessarily been easy on them, especially with low PSI, but no flats, no failures, you know, 8 months in, and it's really just been a good tire. So hopefully I can continue to get some miles on these things and, you know, kind of explore how they work with even less tread on them. But you know, right now, 8 months in, thousands of miles on them, I'm very happy with how they're working, and hopefully continue to, you know, do that testing so I can kind of update you guys. Now, we've got some more JL stuff coming if you guys are interested in that, some Gladiator stuff, some full-size stuff coming, so please be sure to hit like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you got any questions for me, you can find me at Ollie Mansour Editor on Instagram, and hopefully this COVID stuff's going to start dying down and we can all get back on the trail together and do all that good stuff. So, but until then, stay safe, hope everyone's doing well, and we'll talk to you soon.